Our next speaker is Todd Marks, and I got to meet all the speakers except for Paul in the green room, and I asked Todd, what are you going to talk about? What are you here to share with us? And have you ever met someone and after like the fourth word, you realize you are not nearly as smart as you think you are, as my brain went into overload mode. Todd Marks, through MindGrub and ViaPlace, Todd has developed some of the most cutting-edge web, social, and mobile applications for Fortune 500 companies. And I asked him if he did the app that a friend showed me the other day. You push it and it burps. Who creates these things, and why do we download them? Anyway, he had nothing to do with that. He's written several books. He's been featured in media all over the country. He's a much sought-after conference speaker. Would you please welcome Todd Marks?
Thank you. Thanks, Anthony. And if, Paul, you're not here, I'll gladly speak for 36 minutes. I do only have 18, though, and fortunately for Mike, one of the best or first speaking opportunities and the best I had was Ignite Baltimore. And Ignite lets you talk for, I think it's 15 seconds a slide. Maybe it's 5 seconds a slide. It's really fast-paced. Well, as a result, I really like to do that, too. It's great that I followed Bobby. I was a high school teacher. I really believe in instant information and the best way to distribute information, whether it's hardware, software, person-to-person, human information. So what I wanted to do today is to impress upon everybody in here how to distribute information. And the best way to do it is to get you thinking. So my presentation today is basically to get you thinking. And I'm going back to some early philosophers all the way up to really being a futurist. And I am a technologist and a futurist now. My company does make mobile applications because that is really the best paradigm right now for distributing information based on where you are. So the quote, "I think, therefore I am," very much not my quote. So I'll try to pull in some of the other speakers too, because a lot of what they said I really feel connects with my presentation as well. All the way up to even speakers, Carol, who's speaking this afternoon. She's a research scientist at Hopkins, computer scientist, and a lot of what I'm going to talk about today, you'll see her getting more niche-oriented in terms of talking about artificial intelligence and computers. So this was Descartes, who was a mathematician and a philosopher, and he said, "I think, therefore I am." And I'm going to really extend what he talked about. So first we have to really define what is a human, or what is a person for that matter. And a person in the traditional sense is a human being. As Mike talked about earlier, Baltimore has a huge technology population right now. You heard from Tom Loveland, who really talked about getting fiber into Baltimore to really boost what we're doing. Baltimore really is at the precipice of a great opportunity to boost technology. And as a technologist, I really want to talk about that opportunity, but also to get you thinking. So if you go to Wikipedia, it doesn't say a person is a human being. It actually extends that. It says it includes non-humans, such as animals. A lot of dog owners and cat owners would definitely tell you that they're people. Corporations, back to the last election, corporations almost have more vote than we do as individuals, and even we do as collective individuals. The fact that they can lobby and they have so much money. So is a corporation a person? They very much seem every 4 years that they definitely are a person. Artificial intelligence now, again, at that precipice where artificial intelligence very well could exceed human intelligence. And that's a key thing to keep in mind. But what it really comes down to, if you're a person, is are you a citizen? Are you a group of beings? Anthony actually started out this morning, and he talked about two twins. And one twin was having a heart murmur. And when put in the same crib as the other twin, and they bonded, it stopped that heart murmur. That's what it means to be a citizen, a part of a collective. That's what a republic is as our country. And that's very important. It's about that communal aspect, that society. Equality. We're still fighting for equality. And you're going to hear about that a lot from other speakers today, about equality. And we in Baltimore really need to focus on that as a community because we have a big divide. And we were talking earlier, our divide is not like the divide between Brooklyn and New York where there's a bridge and a waterway. It's not like Anacostia where there's a bridge and a waterway. In Baltimore, it's a street. So we need to focus on equality. And lastly, liberty. It's very important. For you to be a person, you have to have free will, and you have to be able to express it. All right, so I am a futurist, so I'm going to talk about the future here. And I'll probably, dabble a little bit, and then I'll get really fast toward the end as my countdown starts going here. All right, so I want to kind of put it in perspective that people can kind of relate to here, but then I'm going to show you real-world examples. So there's been some great movies, Minority Report being one of them, that there's some things I really liked in that movie. One of them is when Tom Cruise had taken the retinas out of another guy because he needed to do a retina scan to get through a security gate. And when he was walking by the Gap did a retinal scan, and they said, hey, Dr. Jones, it was Tom Cruise, and I forget his name, but we have your blue shirt. And that is when I started my company, because I thought, there's no way in heck Gap is going to have my retinal information. I'm going to store that. And I'm going to have it on my mobile device. And I'm going to walk by the Gap, and I'm going to query their API to get their inventory. I'm going to have personal preferences on my smartphone. This was prior to smartphones. And I'll know that they have the blue shirt that I want. The other really cool thing about Minority Report is the touch screen technology that he had. He had that big screen where he's able to throw things across and look at information. You see it on CSI every night. It's a lot of fun. Well, we don't even think about it now, but you have it in just about every smartphone today. That technology is really becoming invasive. It's everywhere. Another good movie, Star Trek. They had the holodeck. The holodeck was basically augmented reality. The difference is it was actually in the brick and mortar. So you had a digital world based on where you are. We can get that on our smartphone. We produce augmented reality. You hold it up and you get information. Yelp, you can find out where the next restaurant is. But augmented reality will be really powerful when you actually get it immersive, when I can not be here on this stage, but you still get what looks like a person. Simone, another good movie. Simone actually was about Al Pacino, who portrayed a female. She was a digital avatar, but she was overlaid in real movie. And humans actually thought she was a character in the movie. And he was so nervous that they would find out she wasn't actually a human, flesh and blood, that he really tried to be protective of her as his incarnation, female incarnation. Another good one, I, Robot. I, Robot is a great movie because the robot there was told to stand down at one point, and it actually exerts self-will and it jumps out a window. And we see this in Hollywood. They're very forward-thinking, but these concepts are starting to take place now. When Carol talks, she'll probably talk about robots and being physicians unto themselves without actually having to have a human guide them. The Matrix. Everybody loves the Matrix. The concepts in here are real concepts that today you can plug into a virtual world. You might not have a stem that goes into the back of your head, but it makes a lot of sense to go into your brain and your spinal cord, and we're going to talk about that a little bit more. All right, philosophy. Let's start from the beginning. Talam, when he talked about it, he started with Socrates. I'm going to actually pick another quote from Socrates. He said, "He who sees with his eyes is blind." He talked about a cave. The person in the cave, he said, was more enlightened because they're thinking in their head. But if you're out in the world and you're socializing and boozing and concerned that you have the best Nikes on, you're not enlightened. You're looking at a physical incarnation of good ideas in the form of a tennis shoe. The good idea isn't the tennis shoe. It enables you to do something. That's a material good. And so the person in the cave who uses their brain and they think, that's where it's at. Bobby, I think she said about 10 times what she's trying to do is make students think. That really is the important thing because your brain, your mind, and your ability to think is what can power everything else. He also says the greatest happiness is of the whole. Again, looking at Baltimore, we've got a huge divide. We are one society, and that society now is a world society, and hopefully one day a universal society. And so it shouldn't be about who's got the oil and who doesn't. It should be about who's got the best ideas, like Mike spoke about. He gave you a dozen ideas that were all phenomenal ideas. We should really be facilitating ideas. I do advocate fast cars moving around Baltimore Harbor. I think that's actually going to be a lot of fun. But he's right. That long term, that's not an idea, a thought that's going to really stimulate our city. All right, a couple other philosophers here. And this is Tertullian. It's actually cut off, but I had to make sure I remembered that, so I put my little clip notes down here. He said a couple things great. He said, that which possesses an intellect is a person. So if you are intelligent, you are a person. And I'm alluding to computers here, as well as humans. And that which is defined in part by relationships. Those two takeaways, an intelligent being and one that is engaged in relationships with others. Those are the things that really define a person. All right, now moving up, and Descartes, we did say, I think, therefore I am, and I'm going to extend him. He was the name of the talk here. Moving ahead, we have the dawn of the information age. It really started with DARPA. The Russians launched a satellite called Sputnik. We got very concerned here in the United States that they were going to be spying on us because we don't play well with communists, although China we certainly work well with nowadays, although they back all of us, so it's kind of a scary thing, but hopefully we'll figure it out and get kind of, ease some of our debts to China. But they were really worried at the time, so they created DARPA to actually start figuring out how we could make satellites. And one of the things DARPA did was figure out we need to be able to communicate readily through some sort of digital technology, really computer communication. And so DARPA actually was the backbone of what created the internet. And so in 1983, they created protocols called TCP/IP, and I don't want to bore you with the computer talk, but basically that's what gets computers talking, and everybody uses it, and that's what spawned this global communication that we have now. In '89, Sir Tim Berners-Lee, he had a proposal. His proposal was the World Wide Web. He was a philosopher. He was a thinker. But he grabbed a programmer, not unlike some of Mike's programs, and both Mike Sabelsky and Mike Brenner, who Mike Brenner did the Startup Weekend, got a bunch of people in the room together. So Tim grabbed a programmer and said, we need to make something. And they made HTTP, which is a protocol of communication that runs on TCP/IP. A lot of P's there. And then they opened it up to everybody in 1992. I was just starting college at the time, and that's really one of the things that really sparked my desire to really push information and to learn. So the internets, going back, not to speak of politics, I know Anthony didn't actually drop Bush's name, but I will. In 2004, he actually was interviewed, and he referred to the internet as the internets. From a philosophic perspective, it's really not that inaccurate. It just happened to be that we all want to be one society, so we all use the one internet and not the internets. But the funny part of this picture is who cares what you really look like? Your profile says whatever you want. And it should be based on what's in your mind. And whatever your profile is, what you do on the internet is basically a manifestation of your mind. And Socrates would say that's a bad copy. All right, convergence of technology. This is huge. This is what sparked me to basically quit my day job and really start working with technology. You had here a hiker in the woods going from point A to point B. Here's Gordon Gekko, the Wall Street. And I know we can't stand Wall Street nowadays, but they were some of the first users of technology, so they're proponents of something that's good. That's a cell phone there in case nobody recognizes that. You're not quite sure because it's really big, but not a radio. I know we used to carry those on our shoulder. It is a cell phone. They're much smaller now. When the iPhone came out, I was working in New York. I've got 4 little girls here, and that's when I said, that's it, I quit. I'm starting a company making mobile apps. And the smartphone is just one stepping stone toward having embedded computing and being able to access information and make those relationships happen smarter and faster. Social media has really taken off. Facebook, #1 website in the world. That's because it connects people. Google was the #1 website in the world. It's a great way to retrieve information, but it's one-sided. Facebook gave that information to you from your peers, and you can just sit back and read the wall. You don't even have to search for it. That's why they're taking off so much. And it's a central community for a lot of people. If it was a country, I think it'd be the 3rd or 4th largest in the world. All right, so mobile meets social. This is where we are now, 2011. They're really colliding here. You can tweet and retweet things. You can like it. You can share. You can check into places. And you share that with your friends, because obviously there are some privacy issues. RFID, you can get information. Actually, near-field communication is the next big step. RFIDs are a little cumbersome for a smartphone, but new smartphones, Google has one with near-field communication. So I can go out and get location based on where I am. I can get relative information, but if I'm in the grocery store, I don't know what's on every aisle, unless they were to put Wi-Fi, and I'd have to have my phone actually go from every Wi-Fi to know what aisle I was on. Near-field communication will change that, because my smartphone, which is also my smart agent, will know what aisle I'm at, and it'll be able to tell me all the prices of mac and cheese versus the fake stuff, but who eats that? The other interesting thing here, too, is if I'm in a store and a salesman's telling me this is the best radio in the world, and he's got a commission, well, he's tainted. That's not a good idea. But if I can hold my phone up and actually see the number of Facebook lights floating in augmented reality over a particular radio, I know that's probably the best one to buy. And that's where we're going. So with information going this fast, we need to look at what is a human. This is a little unsettling, but most people think a human is a body and a mind. Well, this is actually pretty interesting. Last week in China, a pair of co-joined twins were born, and they have 2 brains, 2 spinal cords, and they share everything else alike. In 1996, Life did a piece on the Hensel twins, who are older now and actually thriving. A lot of co-joined pairs have a lot of heart problems and stuff because, obviously heart brings blood to your brain, and you need as much of it as you can get there as possible. With co-joined twins, a lot of times, most of the time, they end up with 2 brains. And surprisingly, each one operates one half of the body, but they learn to work together as quickly as a single individual would be able to work. They drive a car, they type together, 2 separate brains, but they work together in one body. The important thing to get out of this is that the mind is not tied to a single body, and that's where we are in time right now, is that our mind is now going outside of our body. It's going into the internets and working with our friends there. We also, for Parkinson's patients, we can put a pacemaker in the heart that runs and puts a signal in the brain. And that'll actually deter Parkinson's disease, which is a degenerative disease for the body. But the interesting thing is this is an enhanced human. I remember in one of the Olympics, somebody, an amputee, had a fake leg, and they were actually able to run faster than somebody with 2 human legs. So it's very interesting, the times that we're going in. It's no longer just the physical body. It's now really your mind and what you can plug it into. There's virtual worlds now with Second Life. So now, no longer do you have to be contained in this physical world. You can go into this virtual world and flourish in that virtual world. There are university classes. You can learn about physics much easier than potentially in the real world. All right, artificial intelligence. This is really taking off now. IBM with Deep Blue beat the best chess player in the world in '97. A couple months ago, they beat the best Jeopardy player. These are computers. So we can't say, and everybody knows Jeopardy is, oh, you've got a lot of useless knowledge, and it's funny they preface with useless. Because really, it's not your knowledge, it's your ability to think. Because now with the internet, you can tap into the knowledge as long as you know how to use it, and that's the key thing. Alan Turing proposed the Turing test, which what that is a test to determine when computers exceed our intelligence. It's important, we're going to pass it pretty soon. They almost passed in 2008 if one more judge thought that that computer was an actual person on the other end. They chat back and forth to have banter and figure out if they're an actual human or not. So we know Data from Star Trek, and I alluded to Star Trek before. Data was a computer, 100% computer, and he was constantly trying to figure out where the line is between man and machine. They had him cry, they had him fall in love, but yet we didn't think Data was a person, right? He's a machine. I know they're having tears come down his face, and I know he fell in love, but he's just a machine. But these concepts are not unique to this body. It might be unique to your brain or your mind. And when computers exceed our intelligence, will it be unique to us, or might you also have that capability within machines? All right, robotics. It's coming along here. DARPA, once again, they now have computers or machines that can walk on all 4 legs. There's now robots that can play ping pong. That looks a lot like the iRobot in the movie, an awful lot like, and he's even got cool shades. Human-computer interaction, this is really coming along too. An original TED Talk, touchscreen, now on your device. We can now control pinball machines with our mind. JAFIS here in Baltimore has augmented reality goggles. They don't quite look like Oakley's, but the power is getting there. Another local company, Zephyr, has a bioharness that'll tell you all your biometrics. And ultimately, Lifecasting, Gordon Bell, try to capture all that world and put it into the internet to try to get ongoing life. And ultimately today, the Morganzana spillway is flooding thousands of homes to try to save many. And one of the best things that's said here is when Bill Regala was heading out, he said he needs to get backups for his computer and get our Lord and the Blessed Sacrament. Those are the primary things. And he said if we get flooded, we can still write checks and get things going again. That's very important. So singularity, and I'm out of time, so I'll wrap up here, but singularity is a concept of when man and machine come together and there's no distinction between them. It's actually a linear graph towards singularity, and it's happening. Kurzweil thinks it's 2049. That's when I think computers will become self-aware, not necessarily when we combine with them. And what does the future hold? It holds cooler glasses for augmented reality, more human enhancements, smart agents that'll tell you what to do next based on your preferences. It's going to have persons are going to be either natural born or humans. There's a great movie called Ghost in the Shell. You should see it, an anime movie, where they say anybody's human who has some human brain cells in their brain. But other than that, you can be entirely mechanical. And lastly, we'll just have to define what is a human. The takeaway today for you is for you to use your brain and to think, because that's the one vestige of intelligence that we have moving forward. And whether we leverage computers or computers might exceed us, we need to hold on to that ability to think, because right now we're the leaders in it. Thank you.